Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everyone. You have to admit that times are a little challenging right now. There's a lot going on. We might even call it some chaos, with different situations presenting themselves, some surprising, others expected in some regards. We've had some conversations with this gentleman about that and the meaning as it connects to life, and also through the eyes of science. He has made it his life's work to connect the dots, as I like to call it. Lots of eureka moments over the years, many decades, that he's been studying a lot of this, right up to the point of AI, and a lot of this insight contained in his memoir, Footprints in the Chaotic World. And we're going to pick up our conversation with Grant Venerable today. Grant, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Steve, how are you doing today?
Real good, real good. And I remember we left off last time we got together talking about the word chaos, and it does translate to your memoir.
Right.
How do we define chaos? Some may have a different view of that. Everything in life, you could go to a restaurant. Some may say food's fantastic. Others would say good. It could be very subjective. How do we define chaos?
Well, of course, it's subjective in the first place because we are subject to our own beings, our own minds, but there are some definitions of chaos without which science could not proceed. And there's been major progress in that front over the last 20 years. There's a principle in science called uncertainty, the uncertainty principle. It rather goes hand in hand with the principle of chaos. And we were getting to that when we left off the last time. And I want to get back to the stream of thought that we were on. And we were talking about how achieving a measure of power and control in their lives, that is their meaning the human group, brings needless complexity, resulting in misery around nearly everything mortals touch. And then came along drugs and unseemly entertainments to mitigate some of the chaos, the uncertainty, and technologies as panaceas. Of course, technology is not always mechanical or electronic. It's very much chemical. And of course, that's my background, is chemical technology and how we use chemistry to shape and improve our lives. And we use it to cure vexing challenges that lead to even greater complexity and what we call chaos at the end of the day. So in response, mortals begin to depend upon not themselves, but flawed rulers and false heroes to save them. And this has been going on for thousands and thousands of years over civilized human history. But they do that, follow these rulers and false heroes, while blissfully ignoring how things right around them are affecting them. Today, it's social media. How social media leads to mental health breakdowns, ills, and disease, and how such an outcome was anticipated by the insights of 19th century physics disciples of a fellow named Ludwig Boltzmann and his little equation for predicting chaos. But the word we use instead of chaos is entropy, entropy. But entropy it's only a two-variable equation. It's very simple. And I think many system scientists are out of touch with it. So they don't pay attention when the systems engineers and scientists are designing our electronic systems. And by ignoring the Boltzmann equation, which basically tells you there is a limit to the number of existent states that a system can have and occupy. And what do I mean by that? We'll start with the big system of them all, the universe. And then, of course, there's sub-universes, meaning galaxies, solar systems, planetary systems. And then we live on a planetary system. And if it gets too many occupants, and I don't mean just human occupants or living organism occupants, but the way that the system is set up, and in our case, it's set up by nature. And if ever humans, in their great intelligence, inventing things to improve or augment their system, if they make it too complicated, and that word is related to complexity, they almost mean the same thing. But if it gets too complex, the system can be overwhelmed because it's past its ability to carry the complexity. That's where we are. That leads us to a subjective feeling that we have of being out of control. And the word we often use is chaos when we feel out of control. We cannot control our own surroundings. And that was the case in Los Angeles with the recent wildfires, except they're not really that wild. They're becoming more commonplace. What that means is the ability of the organized social systems like government and other institutions, it's beyond their capacity to deal with. And so it falls to those entities who do the systems analysis anew, as though they've never done it before, to design an entirely new governing structure. And to continue with the old governing structure simply invites more of the same. That's where we are. Does that bring up any thoughts for you, Steve?
It actually does. You mentioned social media. I want to go broad here in looking at that and the chaos that we speak of. Do you think that social media, not being negative here, there's a lot of very wonderful pluses within social media, but do you feel that it's also fueling the chaos that we speak of?
It is, because we all sweep through the video feeds every day as they come into our computers. And I begin to study the language that the major mainstream media use, as well as the more local social media. They use conditional phrases, which can be very misleading to the listeners and the viewers. And what do I mean by that? I mean, we could just go look at any media feeds. You know, if I go in one now, there's one, the latest one, USAID, run by a bunch of radical lunatics. That's a quote. After reports of merger with State Department. There's another one, a Hard Rock Hotel collapse, moments before disaster. So they want to give you all the lurid details. And of course, that affects people.
Can I interject here?
Yes.
This is, and I think it's right what we're talking about here. Two recent plane crashes in the last few days.
Yeah.
One in Philadelphia, the other one, the Potomac River. Now, they're under investigation. You know, we assume they're accidents, but it's still under investigation. So we'll leave that part there. But there are so many videos out there of the crashes taking place or just after, seconds after. I was, be honest, last night I got pulled into the rabbit hole of the crash in Pennsylvania, which was an emergency transport plane. Was it a helicopter? Can't recall, honestly. I think it was a plane. Either way, um, seconds, literally seconds after it happened, there's video out there of flames and aftermath and wreckage and all of that. We didn't have that 15 years ago or so. Is that fueling the chaos? Do we need that? I look at it more of, I'm not looking at it from the emotional aspect. I'm more driven by the technical side of things. How does EMTs address a situation like that? How, when a plane goes down, what the field of damage is, all of that. That's what I was looking at. But I don't really need to see that, but I felt I got sucked into it.
Yeah.
Chaos. Do we need things like that?
I've asked myself the same exact question. I'm asking, well, why are the producers feeling that that's important for the public to see, or how they orchestrate it to appear? Because what it does is it presses that component of our beings, which is pure emotion, and it, in fact, shortcuts the part of our beings which is rational and intellectual. So that falls prey to the emotion, and it gets people stirred up.
Mm.
I call that an irresponsibility, failing journalistic responsibility, by not asking themselves the question, is this important to show or to talk about? As I said, the language that's used is conditional around events like that. Words like may be, or could be, or might, but never definitively, such as will be, and here's why. So using that conditional
Interesting
construction of the language also throws people into uncertainty and feeling out of control, that they have no control over circumstances, particularly their own circumstances. I see that running through all these video feeds.
There's no doubt, looking at the video feeds, that an accident took place and you have the visuals of it. But very strong point you make in terms of, we don't know what happened. We don't have any of the details. But you're right in terms of words like could be, suspected, things like that. In the eyes or the ears of the public, it gets cemented into that's what happened. Even though it was could be, even though there's no definitive answer, we might deduce in our minds what actually happened, where there's nothing concrete.
And that's where we are in this part of the memoir and in the prequel, talking about Ludwig Boltzmann and his equation. And that equation actually allows the mathematical physicists to predict how much can the system bear or endure, how much can human beings endure before they go into chaos. And then following Boltzmann, we have other examples of our technology, which I was very close to in graduate school because it impacted my development, namely the atomic bomb. And then we have the peaceful uses of the atomic bomb that came along after it was dropped in Nagasaki and Hiroshima and left such a terrible legacy there. And then we get up to a little app called artificial intelligence, or simply AI. And now people are puzzling over that. And it's being posed with conditional phrases again. Well, it could do this. It could do that to education. It could do this to uh, your own appearance, your own voice. And so it's an opportunity through AI to really scramble things up based on information, getting information so condensed and so scrambled in its condensement. But that's where the dual human experience comes in, and that's where I've been writing here about the double shadow. And it brings us back to the surprise appearance of dualism in a couple named Adam and Eve and their first awareness. Now, this is the mythological Adam and Eve that has been so influential on the thinking of people in the world. And it's been mainly associated with religion, but it need not be only associated with religion because the basis here is mathematics. And Adam and Eve's first awareness uh, of their naked shame brought about the surprise appearance of dualism. It alerted what I'm calling the heavenly court, Elohim and James and John and all the good folks back in biblical Genesis. What it alerted them that this couple had eaten this forbidden fruit because otherwise, how would they know they were naked? That's one of the most interesting parts of it.
Mm.
You know, they put fig leaves over their crotches, and but they didn't want them eating that forbidden fruit because it would give them the knowledge of the gods of the difference between good and evil. Well, the other side of the coin is this is all a sure sign, strangely enough, of the power of algebraic group theory and life's thorny yet impressively compelling dualisms of matter energy, which the atomic bomb was based on. Good, evil, which we've been saddled with ever since humans existed. Light, dark,
Mm.
female, male, and life, death. So while the expulsion from Eden was the result of a talking serpent's deceit, it morphed mythologically into humankind's unplanned or intentional quest, whatever it was, unplanned or intentional, a quest for freedom, enlightenment, and happiness. And that's one of the whole cruxes of this memoir that somehow got channeled through my brain over the last decade plus. But it was also part of the journey of my ancestors in dealing with how do we achieve freedom, enlightenment, and happiness. And this outcome, unsurprisingly, also led to the overemphasis of something called us versus them tendencies in life, which got tribal groups warring against each other, and the rise of narcissistic, power crazed progeny who would suppress freedom in selfish acquisitions of wealth and power. We're in the middle of that. We're in the middle of that today. But freedom also led to some of humankind's time distant progeny, darkening life's us versus them shadow. That is, by mistakenly observing anything with the light of wisdom placed behind, not in front of all matters where you could see it. So they're unable to tell reality from unreality or good from evil. The rise of undiscerning mortals threatens freedom everywhere. So that's what my four volume illustrated work begins and ends with the Alpha and Omega first last theme.
Before
Now,
we run out of time, if I may
please.
pose a practical question for, and I think this is relatable to many. When you feel things are chaotic in your life, obviously you feel like things are out of control. What's your suggestion in dealing with them? And even if we looked at it
Breathe.
through the eyes of, okay, I was going to say science, but breathe. Yeah.
Breathe,
Mm,
says my wise brother Lloyd. Just stop, be still, and take a slow breath in
mm,
and a slow breath out. And it changes the chemistry of the brain instantly. Whatever's going on, it begins to calm our brain mind system. That's the most practical thing I could say right now. But answers come after that. One starts breathing again, and the chaos begins to go away.
mm. Fundamental and something that goes back centuries. It goes right back to meditation, the breathing. But it's so impactful, and
Correct.
I agree with you 1 billion%. We all often forget about that, or we minimize it. I'm breathing anyway. What difference is that going to make? No, intentionally deep breaths.
Intentional, a calm breath in and watch it coming out with your mind.
Mm. I'll
I
share
was
with you. You've shared, your father, Grant. My father didn't have the closest relationship with him. He passed when I was 21. But the three things he always said to me, the first one was breathe. And he wasn't, I don't believe, a spiritual person. The second one, learn to dance. And the third one, learn to read. And I never forgot those three things. And now as I get
that's
older, I I see the value in what he said.
the whole lesson of life. Breathe, dance, and read.
Mm, yeah.
And you know how many people read anymore of the young? They're not reading.
It's
Anyway,
true. They're
so
scrolling. They're not reading. Although they are reading
um,
when they're scrolling, but look at what they're reading.
yeah, what are we reading?
Right.
So,
Exactly. Mm. What would you say is the greatest piece of advice your father gave you?
oh gosh,
Pick one,
I
biggest one.
guess it was he was a Socratic thinker, and I think that's the greatest thing he gave me was when I was smack up against problems and couldn't see my way around them, and they were caused in my mind by other people, and I was, I'd say when I was a child, well, I want to do thus and so with thus and so with somebody, and really solve this problem if I somehow injure them or get rid of them. And he just calmly would sit back and look at me and he said, well, what do you think they would be doing while you're doing that?
Mm. He
All
made
I,
he made you
I said,
think.
I
It's
said,
what he did.
I said, oh, here I am, a 13-year-old, and all I could do was that, oh, but he got my mind thinking holistically
Mm.
instead of particularly on something that was affecting me, how I felt.
Wow. We're just about out of time. Appreciate all your thoughts today. Navigating the chaos. Uh, your memoir available with a simple
On
search.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 4 volumes.
Amazing insight in there, especially coming from the scientific side. Uh, you are our professional of the year with good reason for the insight that you bring us. And I want to share with everybody your name in case somebody is not spelling the last name. Venerable, Venerable, Grant Venerable, Footprints in the Chaotic World.
That's
Thank you for
correct.
being here again today. Really appreciate it, Grant.
Well, thank you, Steve.
All the best. We'll catch up soon. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.